So, of course, a few days ago, Tulsi Gabbard had announced that she was releasing evidence that Obama and others in his administration had engaged in seditious conspiracy against the incoming administration of President Trump, primarily in the form of fabricating hoax intelligence information and releasing it to the media to make it seem as if it were legitimate, and then regurgitating it from the media back to the intelligence community so they could act like they just discovered this information verified by the media, even though those same intelligence people were the ones who gave it, this non-credible, fake, quote unquote, intelligence to the media in the first place. And they fabricated this whole notion that Trump had colluded with the Russians in order to get elected president. Now, it's very important to recognize that, as always, the way progressive fascists, one of the ways they seize political power is to manipulate language. Word smoke and mirrors, word salad, conflating technical terms of art, characterizing something. It's also often referred to as the Mott Bailey defense. Look that up if you wish. But they'll make a claim that's not true. And then there's a bunch of subsidiary stuff that may be true, but doesn't matter. But they'll call them all Russian collusion. Or for illustrative purposes, let's pretend they say Trump did something blue. And then there's a bunch of things that are various great shades of blue under that, but none of them are crimes. But once it's proven that the blue thing is false, is a hoax, then they start talking about all the underlying things that are not crimes, and they call them blue. Well, they're kind of blue. They're shades of blue, but they're not really the thing that's a crime. And so this manipulation of language keeps everyone confused. No one knows what they're actually talking about. So they'll start with Russian collusion. Trump colluded with Russia to steal the election. Demonstrably untrue. Even Mueller, appointed as a special prosecutor, concluded that was simply not true. There's no evidence Trump ever colluded with Russia. So then they'll say, well, yeah, but Russia wanted him to win. Well, that's not a crime by Trump. Or Russia tried, they'll say Russia hacked systems. No evidence that Russia ever actually cyber hacked an election system. But to say, well, Russia wanted to do that. All right, maybe, but it still didn't happen, and it's still not a crime by Trump. Russia preferred that Trump win. That could be, maybe. That's still not a crime by Trump. But every time they say those things, in people's minds, it ties back to this initial false claim of Russian collusion. All those other things that are not crimes become synonyms for Russian collusion, even though Russian collusion has been disproven. So this is how they manipulate the propaganda here. And here's some, when Tulsi Gabbard talked about this a few days ago, she said, hey, over the course of the next week, I will be releasing even additional documents. This is one of the things she released. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has released declassified reports revealing Obama's intelligence had no proof that Putin backed Trump in 2016. By back, they mean that Putin even had a personal preference that Trump be elected. That Putin was agnostic about whether Trump or Clinton won in 2016. And in fact, there's evidence that Putin would have preferred Clinton to win, which of course is 180 degrees contrary to Russian collusion. So there's no proof that Putin backed Trump in 2016, yet under Obama's orders, CIA Director John Brennan directed reports to be made and had them published anyway, making that false claim. Let me see if I can make this bigger so we can read this. About Putin's intentions. It's hard to read, so I'm going to summarize it for all of us. But basically, they had actual evidence, in fact, that Putin would have preferred Hillary Clinton to win. Why? Because Putin had blackmail material on Hillary Clinton. Why? In part because Hillary Clinton was maintaining a secret email server in her bathroom closet totally unsecured, totally unlawful, containing classified communications that we know for a fact was hacked. And of course, Biden didn't learn how to run organized crime family without the help of the Clintons. So obviously there's plenty of stuff to blackmail the Clintons over, and Putin had it. So if Clinton had won, Putin was in the birdseat. He would have been just fine with a Clinton win, which again runs counter to the whole notion that Trump was colluding with Russia or Russia had any interest in that. Let's take a look at some statements Trump has made in the last couple of days about this. Because Trump is always Trump is always great. Let's take a look at our President Donald J. Trump giving some press statements here from the White House. Oh, let me bump up the volume. He's a little soft-spoken here.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about.
All right. We also have this. More statement from Trump. Whoops. One second, folks. I got to fix the volume on this one, too. More questions from the media on all this.
And I read pretty much what you read.
Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room right here. This was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life. That's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it.
Okay. Trump is bringing it. Trump is going for the kill shot. Now, of course, Obama or Barry Soetoro or whatever the heck his name is, wherever he may have been born, he felt obliged to put out a statement. And his statement reflects exactly the kind of manipulation of language stuff that I was just cautioning you about. So what did they claim? They claimed the whole Mueller investigation was about Russian collusion between Trump and Putin, that the two of them agreed to manipulate the whole election to get Trump elected president. Collusion requires cooperation, right? It's not just Russian attempting to influence the election independently. I'm sure every major foreign government is engaged in some efforts to try to manipulate America in all kinds of ways that serves their own national interest. I would expect them to do that. I expect America attempts to manipulate other nations into doing things in such a way that it serves our national interest. But that's not collusion. That Putin may have desires about how an election may come out, that he may run propaganda to try to influence that election is not collusion with Trump. And that's the lie they sold. Now, Barack Obama has a denial of all this. Let's take a look at his denial. Barry Soetoro, Obama. Statement issued from the office of President Barry Soetoro. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. And what's the allegation? That Barack Obama used his intelligence services and the media to fabricate evidence of collusion between Trump and Putin. Collusion. Now here's Obama's denial. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts, and this is where he moves the goalposts, the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. Well, that's not what they were selling. That wasn't the Russian collusion lie. That wasn't the Russian hacked the voting machines lie, that Trump is an illegitimate president lie. If this is what they were saying, it would have been pointless. Russia worked to influence the election but had no effect. That wasn't why they were claiming President Trump was illegitimate. This would make no president illegitimate. Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election but did not successfully manipulate any votes. That's a non-story. Obviously, the lie that everyone's upset about is the lies about collusion and hacking of the voting machines. So what Obama is objecting to here, what he's denying, is something that's never claimed. What is he not doing? He's not denying that there were false claims of collusion. He's not denying that his intelligence services created false claims of hacking. He's making up a claim that didn't exist, that no one would have cared about, that Russia worked to influence. It's a complete straw man defense. And then he says, these findings that that nobody cares about were affirmed in the 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by Marco Rubio. It's another lie. It's another lie because the Senate report was based on the intelligence they were provided by Obama's Intelligence Committee. Obviously, if the information they provided was false, as we now know it was, the conclusions of the Senate committee also have to be false. If someone gives you fake information and you come to a conclusion, that doesn't make your conclusion meritorious. It makes your conclusion based on fake information. Garbage in, garbage out. So Marco Rubio, his committee concluded that I did no wrong based on me telling him that I did no wrong. It's utter nonsense. Which this account on X notes, Obama's statement in response to accusations of treachery for sabotaging his successor by promoting the fraudulent claim that Putin helped Trump win is notable for one thing. It doesn't actually address the actual accusation. It's a non-denial denial. It's just something so the press can say, oh, we saw Obama denied it. Obama didn't deny shit here. And I thought this was great because now they're all saying, hey, no, the Democrats, the progressive fascists who we had 2 years of Mueller investigation, the whole first 2 years of Trump's presidency as 45, during which the economy was booming before they sabotaged the world economy with COVID solely in an effort to take out Trump. That's how much they hated him. They were willing to destroy the entire world and rule over the ashes rather than have Trump as an effective president of the United States. But for the first 2 years, Mueller's investigating the supposed claims of Russian collusion, which would have made President Trump an illegitimate president. And now they say, wait a minute, we never said anything about Russian collusion. That was never our claim. Our only claim was this non-story that Russia had a preference. No.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump. What is the
Nobody said today, no one ever said hacking. No one ever said collusion, except, you know what? Except for everybody on the left at the time was arguing hacking and arguing collusion. And now they're trying to pretend they never said that. But here are the clips, 2 minutes worth.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump. What is the end of our democracy? Votes were definitely
I know,
affected.
but you're not-
Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election.
No doubt. The Russians hacked the election.
Yes, Russia hacked the election.
Fact, Russia hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President Trump says he still wonders if the Russians hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
If he admits it, it casts a shadow on his victory over Hillary Clinton.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Let's be clear, Russia hacked the election. Definitively, Russia hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
Election-related cyber hacking.
Cyber hacking of U.S. elections. Cyber hacking of the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
The CIA, the FBI, NSA,
All of these intelligence organizations,
17 intelligence agencies
all conclude that Russia hacked the election.
If we find out that Donald Trump just theoretically was colluding with Russia while they were hacking the election, that is completely impeachable.
This dossier alleged a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian effort to hack the election.
The director of national intelligence, the head of the National Security Agency, the head of the FBI, all of these intelligence experts saying Russia hacked the election.
the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, I mean, they've all said this. So to believe that that's wrong, you have to believe they're all involved in an elaborate conspiracy to get Donald Trump, which seems a little far-fetched to me.
Does it? Does it? Does it? All right, so that's where we are currently. Now, I mentioned earlier, are we going to see people arrested? Are we going to see people prosecuted? Are we going to see people convicted? That would be great. That would be absolutely awesome. If that doesn't happen, is that a failure of the Trump administration? And I would say no, depending on whether the Trump administration nevertheless achieved the things that are necessary to America's salvation. I talked about that a bit earlier. If Trump finds he has to choose in expending scarce political capital between January 6th type prosecutions, perp walking Barack Obama into prison, getting a Trump style mugshot of Barack Obama. If he has to trade that off in order to secure our nation from 100 million illegal migrant third world invaders, that's a deal I can accept. And it doesn't mean all this is valueless. This all has value, even if it does not result in prosecutions and convictions, because there's kind of judicial value, there's criminal value, there's justice value on the one hand, and then there's political value on the other. This has inherent political value, making explicit how corrupt these Democrats are, that they'll do anything. They'll destroy anything in their way to maintain their political power. And that ought to influence American citizens in how we vote, if we care about America. So even if none of this leads to prosecutions, convictions, perp walks, mugshots, it has an inherent value in pursuing solely for political value purposes.
Thanks for watching this highlight segment of our full-length Law of Self-Defense live stream. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to give us a like and subscribe for more expert analysis on politics, law, and how to be hard to convict. And to watch the full-length episode of this show, just click right here. Stay safe.